ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic I am speaking on significance of Sri Ramakrishna's life. We will be celebrating Sri Ramakrishna's birthday on coming Saturday. Sri Ramakrishna's advent is very significant in many ways. There was a kind of confusion among religions of the world and disharmony among the various religions. A great confusion about the reality. So it was very necessary that Divine Supreme should come to the rescue of saving humanity from all this confusion. Hence the advent of Sri Ramakrishna. He came to demonstrate the real value in life. Is it simply to live the life like animals, eating, drinking, sleeping? Is that all? And one day leaving the body. Is it all for that a person has to take human life? No. It has got immense value. We get human birth in order to strive for spirituality, in order to achieve the spiritual goal. Just for that, this human life is an opportunity given to us by the invisible divine power, who is ever compassionate. But if we don't utilize this opportunity in a proper way, then it's a great loss for us. So how important it is and how one must struggle, Sri Ramakrishna has shown in his own life. He himself underwent tremendous spiritual sadhana. From the beginning of his life you can find how he fixed the goal. Fixing the goal is very important. Most of us in that respect have not fixed the goal at all. Fixing the goal doesn't mean that you must become some professional, enjoy the world immensely, earn as much money as you can, that's all. No. That's not the thing. So in a glorious hymn to Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda spontaneously extols him as just now I chanted, Dharmastapaka, meaning Sri Ramakrishna established or laid the foundation of something that doesn't exist. This may appear as a contradiction. Dharma is that idea or attitude by means of which a human being protects himself from degradation into a mere biological creature, but holding on to which a person can reach the level of divinity. It is eternal. It is the breath of God. So how did he say that Sri Ramakrishna laid the foundation of Dharma? Now we should understand what exactly it means. Dharma, its concept and practice, that we should have clear understanding. What is Dharma? It is that which holds a human being together, preventing and protecting the personality from disintegrating. The term Dharma means dharayati iti dharmaha, means it helps a person to hold himself in a manner that while living in this world nothing can disintegrate his personality or nothing can reduce his level of awareness from the highest form evolved in biological existence. That's the concept of Dharma. It's an idea holding on to which a human being not only protects himself or herself from disintegrating, but helps to build oneself up. From the negative viewpoint, we may say that Dharma is that which stops degradation of a person. The positive aspect of it is that it holds a person in such a manner that it becomes a springboard for further evolution. This concept of Dharma is known as Shashvata, Nitya and Sanatan. That means eternal, ever existent, non-created. It is the essence of the universe. The term in question is Thapaka, one who establishes. And the process of establishment is known as Sthapana. The word should not be taken to mean that Sri Ramakrishna brought into existence that which didn't exist. It means the value. The awareness of the real concept of the word Dharma had slowly worn out and was subject to misinterpretation. So the meaning of the word Dharmasya Sthapaka means Sri Ramakrishna has rehabilitated the lost value of religion. Rehabilitation, re-establishment, giving it a life as it were, a new sense is what Sri Ramakrishna did in his lifetime. That's why according to Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna is to be worshipped with great respect, reverence and regard, blended with love, so that he becomes the closest, a part and parcel of our being. Sri Ramakrishna didn't start a new sect. He didn't start a new religious concept, but rehabilitated the lost values of the essence of true religion. Dharmasthapaka. He established the lost value of the true idea of religion. He established it. How did he do this? By transmuting his own personality. By accepting the disciplines of different religions that have a hold on human society, Sri Ramakrishna became the establisher, living that religion in his life and with the authority at its command. Not only that, he became the Swarupinaha. He identified the essence of every religion, not by book learning, but by accepting and experimenting the disciplines of every major religion in society in totality. The field of experimentation was his own personality. He transformed his personality by following the methodology of religions that he practiced. We learn from his biography that for 12 years Sri Ramakrishna accepted the challenge of all the major denominations under the banner of Hinduism, as also Christianity and Islam. He reached the promised goal of each and every religious path to the extent that when he decided to practice Islam, he went out to the Kali temple campus and practiced it there. By divine dispensation, teachers of every aspect of spiritual discipline arrived at his door. It is said that when the student is ready, one need not search for the teacher will come into his or her life. In Sri Ramakrishna's life we find that the Sufi mystic Govinda Roy came to him. He had a divine command to meet Sri Ramakrishna. Thus he initiated Sri Ramakrishna into the spiritual practice of Islam. He felt the presence of the concept of Allah as Saguna Nirakar, without form but with attributes, and the presence of a person with a long flowing beard merged into Sri Ramakrishna's own being, and Sri Ramakrishna became one with the concept of Allah. Similar was his experience when he practiced Christianity. Each and every practice was done with such intense devotion, earnestness, and transparent sincerity that he was unstoppable in his quest. Sri Ramakrishna is declared as Dharma incarnate. We find in Sri Ramakrishna's life another beautiful aspect. The scriptures mention the signs or characteristics of an avatar Purusha, that is, an incarnation of God. It says, God incarnates himself in human form, though appearing as human. He is the divine. This means that he doesn't break any tradition. He lives and subjects himself to all traditions. That's why the incarnation accepts human gurus. Sri Ramakrishna had a number of gurus, depending upon the different religious practices he undertook. Every branch of spiritual practice was guided by an eminent guru, who by divine dispensation was asked to meet and initiate him. He did not seek them, they sought him out. In return, we find that the insufficiencies, inadequacies of the human guru were removed by their association with Sri Ramakrishna. For example, in the case of Bhairavi Brahmani, we find that when she became possessive and acquisitive and proud about her disciplines, Sri Ramakrishna felt that any further stay with him would totally ruin her life. Therefore he pointed out her shortcomings and made it possible for her to leave him and go to Benares. In accordance with tradition, he accepted a guru, followed his or her instructions, and thereby achieved perfection in that path. Sri Ramakrishna made his personality as a field to experiment, and having done that, he reached the goal envisaged by major religions. With the experience at his command, with the authority emanating from his experience of the reality, he proclaimed, "Don't be carried away by the isms. They are but different paths leading to the same goal." Here is the first example in human history, the history of human civilization, wherein a single person in his lifetime takes upon himself the challenges to find out what is the real truth. Or else each one of us would say, "I am true and others are wrong." The next point we should consider, the integrative resonance. In today's world we forget that dharma or spiritual wisdom was thought of by humans to protect society from disintegrating. In the name of religion, We run at each other's throats. What a downward journey. Religion is supposed to unify society based on the concept of we are the children of the divine. But due to lack of trust in each other, individual and institutional ego enters, and the holier than thou attitude starts playing foul. The world was waiting for such a person who, not by book learning or by expressions, but by personal practice, making his own personality as a field of experimentation, reached the goal of every experimentation. And he came to know firsthand the truth that all paths lead to the same goal. Before Sri Ramakrishna, the world never saw such authoritative experiencing of reality, which is infinite through infinite perspectives. And we are not sure whether we would be able to witness such phenomenon in the near future. The whole human society waited with bated breath to welcome this man of God. He knew that we humans are prepared to destroy ourselves in the name of religion. Swami Vivekananda was absolutely saturated with this universal idea of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna saw to it that Narendranath became Vivekananda by proclaiming that he would reach to the world the wisdom that he had gained by the dint of his own spiritual experience. Swamiji and Sri Ramakrishna were inseparable. The trinity of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sharda Devi and Swami Vivekananda are but the descent of the one divine being to meet the challenges of the present day civilization. It had to have three different forms. Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda had their particular role to play, and Sri Sharda Devi is the epitome, the concrete, tangible representation of the concept of the motherhood of the divine, unparalleled in religious history. After the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda travelled extensively across the length and breadth of India, living with both the high and the lowly for 4 long years. Thus he found out where the spirit of India lay. After travelling through all the regions of India and witnessing the multicultural, multiracial dimension of the Indian society, he summed up his observation in these words: the national characteristic of India is renunciation and service. Intensify her in these channels and the whole nation will be taken care of. These are the two pillars of spiritual life as well. We find that Narendranath hardly ever spoke of Sri Ramakrishna while in the West. He only spoke of the glory of Vedanta, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita, dualism, qualified monism and monism. He spoke of the essence of the Vedic literature. When he returned to India, his brother disciples, excepting a few of them, charged him of being ungrateful to his Guru. They said, you spoke of your own wisdom, not of our Guru Sri Ramakrishna. Movingly, Swami Vivekananda answered, do you think I have not understood what Sri Ramakrishna is and why he came? Don't you see I have preached what he taught, but without uttering his name? Why? Because I did not want to create another sect to be inflicted upon human society, which is already full of them. He knew at the same time that history would not pardon him if he did not reveal what he thought of Sri Ramakrishna. So he revealed to us the greatness of Sri Ramakrishna in the mantra, Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma swarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnayate namaha. He specifically uses the term avatara varishta. The term varishta qualifies the word avatara, meaning the best in superlative. He clarified this point in his own inimitable manner. In the Mundakopanishad, we come across a verse. This one is verily the vital force which shines divergently through all beings. Knowing this, the illumined man has no further occasion to go beyond anything in his talk. He disports in the self, delights in the self, and is engrossed in the spiritual effort. This one is the chief among the knowers of Brahman. Such a person is the best among the knowers of Brahman. Now we know that once a person experiences the reality of Brahman as his own true nature, there is no difference in the inspiration. When a person or sadhaka or sadhika experiences that oneness with the Supreme, the Absolute, the Eternal, he or she has reached the goal and is at par with each other. Par in what sense? In the knowledge, the experience of Brahman. As far as Brahmajnana is concerned, as far as the experience of oneness is concerned, it is the same. But where does the difference lie? It is in the behavior pattern. How? The term avatar varishta is used not to denigrate the previous avatars, but to expand the role of an avatar. There are infinite ways to reach the truth. Some of us are totally self-centered. We move away from society and live in solitude. With endeavor, we become aware of the indestructibility of the soul. But the habits that we have formed prior to this realization are anchored in either self-centeredness or self-effacement. To illustrate the point, in an Indian village, on its outskirts, there was a rest house for the convenience of pilgrims and holy men. The villagers would take care of their basic needs, supplying them with food and water. One day, a realized soul came and took shelter there. The villagers came to know of it and decided to offer him something. When they came to meet him, they found him sitting quietly in a room. They called out to him, but he didn't answer. The villagers felt that this holy man was not inclined to communicate with them. They also felt somewhat scared of the wrath of the holy man if they tried to talk to him. Hence they left their offerings at his door and quietly left the place. After 3 days, the holy man left the place. After a while, came to the village another holy man who was also known to be a realized soul. When the villagers went to him with offerings, he open-heartedly welcomed them and made kind inquiries about their welfare. He too left the place after 3 days. After that, another holy man known to be a realized soul came to the village and took shelter in the rest house. The villagers went to him and he was very kind, and with concerning words he inquired about their welfare and consoled them. One night, when he was about to rest, he heard loud wailings coming from a house not far. Immediately, he went out in search of the house and soon found out that the child in the family had died and the mother of the child was crying uncontrollably. The holy man went to the mother, consoled her in such a manner that the mother felt as if he himself was sharing her grief. He truly felt the oneness with that agonizing mother and took upon himself the sorrow, thus sharing the agony. Now of the 3 that have realized the soul, who appeals to us most? All of them had achieved their goal of life, but their behavior pattern from our standpoint is so different. Naturally, the 3rd holy man would be our best choice. His behavior pattern is the measure of our choice. When Shiram was addressed by Swami Vivekananda as Avatar Varishta, this Upanishadic statement was in his mind. As far as Avataratva is concerned, each one of the avatars, be it Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus or Muhammad, all are the same. They are all incarnations of the divine descended to meet the requirements of the society of their times. Society keeps on changing. Social needs vary. And we find that each age poses a different challenge. Many questions unique to that age arise, and answers to these questions may not be available in the ancient explanations. We read in the Bhagavad Gita, whenever society is at a point of disintegration, I take birth. Lord Krishna says. So it is not the avataratva that is compared by Swamiji. It is the sensitivity to social longings and the behavior pattern that is compared. The next point we should consider, the uniqueness of Sri Ramakrishna. What is the unique nature of Sri Ramakrishna's character that we don't find in others? What was required in Sri Ramakrishna's incarnation? We have seen that avatars, right from times immemorial, have been accepted as divine. Sri Ramakrishna lived the life of an honest sadhaka. Except for odd mention, we don't have detailed accounts of the spiritual struggle in other incarnations of the divine. For the first time in history, we find a factual and detailed account of Sri Ramakrishna's life as an aspirant. The 12 years of his life of sadhana are recorded in great detail. Hence, there is no scope for misconception about spiritual life. Here, the behavior pattern of Sri Ramakrishna is unique. We will mention one of them here as an example. We learn from some books that in the Egyptian culture, the concept of motherhood of the divine was, at some point of time, trying to catch the imagination of the people. But it was short-lived. Apart from that fleeting mention, the concept of the fatherhood of the divine is the only concept accepted by other major religions. But motherhood of the divine is a part of the basic Hindu culture. The concept of Narayan has also conceived the idea of Narayani, Vishnu of Vaishnavi, Brahma of Brahmani, and so on. Whenever we have conceived of God as Father, at the same breath we have conceived of Him as Mother also. And the concept of the Mother of the Universe is exclusively a contribution of Hindu mysticism or spiritual wisdom. If we look at history, we find that the Shakti or female power of previous incarnations played second fiddle to their husbands. In the life of Sri Rama, Sita played the role of enhancing the virtue of her matchless husband. In the role of Sri Krishna, we find that due to a call of duty, Radhika almost went out of his life. Buddha married but renounced to show that marriage is a bondage. Christ did not feel the need of Shakti in his life. But in Sri Ramakrishna's life we find that he chose his own Shakti, and after marriage he saw in her the epitome of the concept of the Divine Mother of the Universe. He rehabilitated and restored the lost concept of the motherhood of the universe in flesh and blood within the limitations of the human form. Not only did he choose, he taught her how to realize the supreme goal of life, that is God realization. No wonder she later exclaimed, "What a matchless husband I had." And that matchless husband worshipped his wife. He exhibited how to live in the world and remain at the height of spiritual awareness. This behavior pattern is unique. It has never been seen before. When Swami Vivekananda says, "You are the best manifestation of an avatar," he wanted to tell us how much the behavior pattern is important. In other words, service to humanity is a way of spiritual life. This concept does not make one exclusive. We should learn how to live and come out of the clutches of terror and intolerance. Harmony should be based on religion. This is the significance of Sri Ramakrishna's life in the present day. Swami Vivekananda used to say, Sri Ramakrishna is our center. Each one of us is a ray of that light center. A true and living representation of Viveka and Vairagya we saw in Sri Ramakrishna. The Master, we read of the Viveka and Vairagya in scriptures, but we saw them personified in him. So indicating that we should develop Viveka and Vairagya in our life. That's the way to sustain the life. Sri Ramakrishna had the power to transmit spirituality to others, and he could lift one's mind to higher levels of consciousness. He did this by a thought, willpower, or touch. Swami Chidananda says, I myself had the good fortune to experience Samadhi 3 times during his lifetime because of Sri Ramakrishna's touch and wish. Sri Ramakrishna was the embodiment of truthfulness. He practiced the most perfect simplicity in his habits. His spirit of renunciation was without reservation and compromise. Sri Ramakrishna was a unique combination of humanity and divinity. Swami Chidananda says, "My conviction is that he was a God-man. His unheard of sadhanas have awakened the Sanatana Shakti of India for the spiritual welfare of the world." The life of the Master is a living, flaming Upanishad. Sri Ramakrishna's teachings are considered as Upanishad. The Master is the living demonstration of the truths of the Upanishads. With the passing of days, Swami Adbhutananda, another direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, says, "I understand the greatness and glory of my Master. He was God in flesh and blood, and in him live all deities." Sri Ramakrishna used to take everybody wherever he was and push him forward. So everyone has an access to Sri Ramakrishna. Anybody in this world had an access. He never disappointed anybody by failing in the attempt to mold him according to his own light. He had a distinct relation with each devotee and maintained it throughout. Swami Vivekananda has noticed that he was amazed to see Sri Ramakrishna's love for us. There can be no comparison with his love. The embodiment of love, Sri Ramakrishna. The Master went through hard spiritual practice for 4 long years without sleep. What sufferings he had to face, and why? All for the good of the world. He suffered for the sake of the world. As Sri Ramakrishna was one day walking over a lawn, he once turned back to find that the grass blades over which he had trodden were trying to raise their heads again with difficulty. This made him weep, and he said, "Alas, these two are sentient. These two are suffering greatly." From that day on, Sri Ramakrishna could not walk on lawns. Sri Ramakrishna realized that every woman, whether young or old, is representative of the Divine Mother, the Shakti, the Mother of the Universe, Jagannatha. The highest position that can be given to womanhood was given by Sri Ramakrishna. God as the Savior of the sinners was beheld by me in the person of Sri Ramakrishna, says another disciple, Girish Chandra Ghosh. He said, "I cannot dream of another mortal frame through which so much divine love can flow to fallen humanity. Sri Ramakrishna is the sole tenant of my heart. That, however, is in no way due to my worth, but to his grace and love." What would come out from the Master's lips could not in any way be violated by anybody. In a few words, he would hit off the tendency of a man and put him in the way to the realization of the ideal. Mahendranath Gupta, who recorded the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, said, "I am an insignificant person, but I live by the side of an ocean, Sri Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna Sagar, and I keep with me a few pitchers of sea water. When a visitor comes, I entertain him with that. What can I speak of but Sri Ramakrishna's words?" Shada Devi said, "Our Master is Maheshwara and Maheshwari. He is the embodiment of all times. He is the embodiment of all mystic syllables." Shada Devi further said, "One can worship through him all gods and goddesses." When you worship Sri Ramakrishna, you are worshipping all gods and goddesses. That's why in our mantra also we say, "Sarva Deva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishna Namaha." He is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. And not only that, we also say Om Aim. Aim represents Guru, Satchidananda Guru, the world teacher. Sri Ramakrishna is the world teacher. And not only that, he is Om. Om Aim Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Om represents Brahman, impersonal Brahman and personal aspect of God. Sri Ramakrishna represents both. So, when you offer worship to Sri Ramakrishna with love and dedication, you will have the result of the ultimate reality. And you will certainly realize everything is nothing but God Himself. There is tremendous significance in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. All his teachings are the outpourings of his tremendous spiritual sadhana. Sri Ramakrishna taught no creed or dogma. His only concern was man's uplift. How a person could be uplifted from his sufferings. According to him, there is infinite moral and spiritual potential in everyone. To develop that potential is one's foremost duty in life. We are not giving attention to our potential qualities. That's our tremendous weakness. And because of that weakness, we have to suffer immeasurably. Swami Vivekananda warned in his address at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893. Every soul is potentially divine. But you have to struggle to manifest that potential qualities. Otherwise, your life will be a waste. Sri Ramakrishna, through his personal realizations, declared religions are like so many paths leading to the same goal. That is God. Man reaches his religious goal when he attains his highest moral development. It is like one house, many doors. All the doors lead into the house, through whatever door you come in. Same way religion also. Whatever religion you practice, you come to realize the divine truth. Sri Ramakrishna also removed all confusion about personal and impersonal aspect of God. He validates both. God is not only personal, but is also impersonal. It is difficult to conceive an impersonal God, so to begin with, God has to be thought of as a person. Can anyone think of the white color without thinking of a white object? One can look at the morning sun, but not at the midday sun. Similarly, when God is manifest in a person, we know what God is like. Otherwise, God is impersonal and beyond thought and speech. Sri Ramakrishna also showed us the technique of living this world. Everyone has to live in this world, having taken birth as human beings, but there's a way of living the life. There's a way of living the life. Be in the world, but not of it. Perform your duties as well you can, but don't count too much upon the fruits of your action. Rather, surrender them to God. Try to feel as if you are only a tool in the hands of God. Nimitta matram bhava savyasacham. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, be an instrument. Everything is done by me. And it is true. So we have to communicate ourselves, we have to connect ourselves with the divine. That's the idea. To connect ourselves with the divine means to think of the divine all the time. Sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara. Yudhyacha. Again Shri Krishna tells in the Gita, remember me all the time and then fight. That means to fight is the duty of Arjun. But fighting is done in the name of God, to eradicate the evil from the society. So whatever work you are doing, whatever job you are performing, do it with utmost efficiency by constantly remembering the divine. When you remember the divine, you can't do anything against the will of the divine. Religion is an experience. It makes no sense unless its truths are experienced. Is your thirst satisfied unless you drink water when you are thirsty? God is everywhere. It is true. But He is most manifest in man, in human being, man or woman. So serve the human being as God Himself. That is as good as worshipping God. So serving humanity as the manifestation of God, that is the greatest message Sri Ramakrishna gave in his life. And that message was broadcasted by Swami Vivekananda to the world. Atmano mokshartham jagadhitaya cha. Dedicate yourself in the service of humanity. The more you do service in the real sense of the term, the more you are benefited in every respect. You don't have to ask for benefits. When you don't ask for your benefits, then the benefits come in a different way, and they are spiritual benefits. Your heart gets purified, you are uplifted, and you go beyond sufferings and sorrows, and you get ultimate peace and joy. You get into golden treasure, and that is possible only when you are not expecting any result for your services you are doing. Do it thoroughly selfless. Then you become recipient of all the divine benefits. Like stars in the daylight, God is invisible. Can you therefore say that there is no stars in the sky during the day? Because you can't find God in the days of your ignorance, say not that there is no God. Don't say there is no God. A man thickly embedded in Maya is like a piece of iron thickly embedded in mud. Just like the iron with mud is unmoved by the power of the magnet, so also the man is unaffected by the Lord. When the mud is washed away with water, it frees the iron. Likewise, when Maya is washed away with prayer, man is automatically drawn towards God. To explain God after merely reading the scriptures is like explaining a city after seeing it on a map. A meteorological report may forecast heavy rainfall, but you can't squeeze a single drop from the paper on which the report is written. So also, many good sayings are found in holy books, but merely reading them won't make you spiritually wise. You have to practice them and you have to realize them. An unbaked cake of flour sizzles loudly when put in heated oil. The more it's fried, the less the noise. When it's fully fried, the noise ceases altogether. Likewise, when a man has a little knowledge, he goes about talking and talking and preaching and preaching. A truly wise man doesn't make a vain display of his wisdom. Through silence, he spreads the divine message. To sublime silence, Ramana Maharshi influenced all the spiritual seekers. People with all sorts of doubts would come to meet Ramana Maharshi to clarify their doubts. But as soon as they come and sit before him, they would not ask any question. After 1 hour or so, they would go back with full satisfaction that all the doubts are vanished. Just by being in the presence of the Maharshi, who was self-realized, they could understand the divine message transmitted to them through the silence. Young bamboo bends easily, while full-grown bamboo breaks when bent with force. Likewise, young minds bend easily towards spiritual thoughts, as their minds has not yet stored up with contamination. And another most important teaching Sri Ramakrishna has given to us through his life, which is most significant, and that is, Sri Ramakrishna has declared all women are parts of the Blessed Mother, and they should be looked upon as mothers. Sri Ramakrishna himself said, my ideal in life is I am the child of the Divine Mother. I hold on to this ideal, so there is no anxiety. But the world should not live in his mind. A boat may stay in water, but water should not stay in the boat. Live like a lotus leaf in water, or like a mud fish in the marsh. A spiritual person lives in the material world without being obsessed with it. Milk poured into water mixes readily with it. When converted into butter, it no longer gets mixes but floats on top. Do all your duties, but keep your mind on God. Live with wife and children, father and mother, and serve them. Serve them as if they were very, very dear to you. But know in your heart of hearts that they really don't belong to you. There is nothing wrong in your being in the world, but you must direct your mind toward God. Otherwise you will not succeed. Do your duty with one hand, and with the other hold on to God. After the duty is over, you will hold on to God with both hands. Vision of God is obtained when the mind is perfectly tranquil. When the sea of one's mind is agitated by the waves of desires, it can't reflect God. Sri Ramakrishna gives an example. A kite, that is a bird, an eagle, with a fish in its beak, was chased by a large number of crows and screaming kites, pecking at it and trying to snatch away the fish. Wherever the bird went, the flock of birds, crows, followed it. Tired of the chase, the kite threw away the fish. Instantly the flock veered off in the direction of the fish. The kite now sat calm and undisturbed upon the branch of a tree. As long as a man doesn't cast aside the burden of worldly desires, he cannot be at peace with himself. Ceremonies and rituals are useful up to a certain point for the growth of spiritual thoughts. However, they become useless for him who has realized the highest truth, namely God. Just as the austere shell that contains a precious pearl is in itself of very little value, but is essential for the growth of the pearl. To acquire the power of concentration, a person must begin by fixing the mind on a God with form. Only then can he meditate on the formless. Once the mind has become trained to focus on an idol, It is easy for it to focus on the formless. A marksman learns to shoot by first aiming at big objects. As he gets more skilled in shooting, he targets smaller and smaller objects. After 14 years of hard penance, a man acquired the supernatural power to walk on water. When he displayed of it, his brother rebuked him. What you have accomplished in 14 years, ordinary man can do by paying a few pennies to the boatman. There are several bathing banks or ghats on a large river. A person goes to whichever ghat he pleases, but reaches the same water. There is no point in quarreling over the merits of the various ghats. Every religion of the world is like a ghat. Each has its own plus and minus points, and each leads to the water of eternal bliss. The one and the same water is called by different names in different languages. So, the one Satchidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, is invoked by some as Allah, by some as Hari, and by others as Jesus. Two persons were hotly disputing over the color of a chameleon they had seen on a tree. One said that it was red, the other said it was blue. Unable to resolve the difference, they went to a man who lived under the tree and had watched the chameleon in all its phases. He knew that the chameleon constantly changes color. So he agreed with both of the men, for the chameleon was red as well as blue. Likewise, a devotee who has seen God only in one aspect knows that aspect alone. None but he who has seen him in manifold aspects can say all these forms are the one God, for God is multi-formed. God is both formless and with form, and infinite are his forms. Viveka and Vairagya, discrimination and dispassion, are the two purifying agents in our life. Put a purifying agent like alum into a vessel of muddy water and see how impurities settle down at the bottom, making the water clear again. Similarly, Viveka and Vairagya help our restless senses to settle down and clear our minds of tensions and anxieties. A person who is fond of fishing first gathers detailed information about a pond, the type of fish it contains, and the most suitable bait to catch them. He then goes to the pond with his fishing rod and a bait and waits there patiently until he gets an attractive catch. Similarly, a spiritual aspirant should first gain knowledge from scriptures and spiritual masters. He should try to seek God with the bait of faith and devotion, with his mind as a fishing rod. With unceasing patience, he must wait for the fullness of time. Only then will he realize the divine. Once a disciple asked his guru, "When shall I see God?" Then Guru took his disciple to the sea and immersed his head in water. After some time he released him and asked, "How did you feel?" "Desperate for breath," replied the devotee. On hearing, the Guru said, "You shall see God when you are as desperate for him as you were for breath." Love can be unselfish, samartha, reciprocal, samanjasa, or selfish, sadharana. The unselfish lover seeks only the welfare of his beloved, even at the cost of personal hardship and pain. In reciprocal love, the lover desires happiness both for self and his beloved. When love is selfish, the lover cares only for his own happiness. 4 blind men went out to see an elephant. One touched the leg of an elephant and said, "The elephant is like a pillar." The second one touched the trunk and said, "The elephant is like a thick club." The third one touched the belly and said, "The elephant is like a big wall." The fourth one touched the ears and said, "The elephant is like a big winnowing basket." Thus they began to dispute hotly among themselves as to the shape of the elephant. A passer-by, seeing them thus quarreling, said, What is it you are disputing about? They told him everything and asked him to arbitrate. The man said, none of you has seen the elephant. The elephant is not like a pillar. Its legs are like pillars. It is not like a winnowing basket. Its ears are like winnowing baskets. It is not like a club. Its trunk is like a club. The elephant is a combination of all these: legs, ears, belly, trunk, and so on. In the same manner, those who quarrel about the nature of God have each seen only one aspect of the deity. So this way, Sri Ramakrishna has given lot of teachings which are most significant and practical. All these teachings we can find in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Every page has got masterly spiritual instructions. Only one should have sincere heart to lead the life of a spiritual, and one should prepare himself properly. His body and mind should be adjusted to spiritual life. Then only it is possible to go forward in the spiritual path. Otherwise the world is so dominating. It pulls you more and more towards it. Just like the crocodile pulls the leg of a person more vigorously into the water. In the same way, the world pulls down the person vigorously. If a person is not cautious, he will meet with ruin. So, Vivek and Vairagya must be developed. One must aspire for the spiritual goal, and one must effort sincerely in reaching the goal. Once he attains that highest goal, then he finds there is no conflict at all in religions. The conflicts arise because of the different grades of mind. And the mind is thoroughly refined, and when a person realizes the truth through refined mind, then everything is clarified. So we find great significance in Sri Ramakrishna's life and teachings. The more we read, the more we feel purified in our heart. So it's very important for spiritual seekers to devote some time every day to read some literature connected with Sri Ramakrishna and his disciples. It's very important. It is essential for spiritual nourishment. It is spiritual food. You have to take spiritual food every day to keep the spiritual personality intact. So with these sayings, I conclude this topic. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. May the Lord protect us, may He nourish us, may we not be fruitful and enlightened, may we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.